the location. From O-A-K-L-A to L-B, I'm a Raider.
Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, and on today's show, we're going to be talking about Julio Jones, because I know this is the Las Vegas Raiders Report, but we've been connected to Julio, so I'm going to just go and tell you I'm talking about it today. We're also going to talk about Henry Ruggs, and I am going to talk about Bryan Edwards, but I wouldn't be able to do any of that if it wasn't for our awesome sponsor today. Shout out to Autumn Abyss. If you guys are looking for some high-quality Raiders apparel that feels a lot better than dry fit, head on over to autumnabyss.com, and while you're there, join the Abyss. And what I want you to do is this. Not only do I want you to watch the entire video, but we're going to be giving away 3 Charles Woodson Hall of Fame t-shirts, just like this one you see on screen here. To get the details on how to win one of these bad boys, I want you to continue to watch, and it's going to be coming up here in just a little bit. What's going on? Mitchell Rentz here from the Las Vegas Raiders Report, and we're starting this show off around Julio Jones. Why? Because not only do we cover the latest news and rumors around the Raiders, if there's big-time news happening going on in the NFL, I'm sitting here and I'm going to talk about it. The latest around Julio and the Atlanta Falcons is that they are willing and listening to trade offers. Okay. That is important for this team, because no matter how you look at the roster, no matter how you shake this out, if Julio Jones is on the open trade market, and if you're not an NFL team that's at least a little bit interested, especially when you don't have a number 1 wide receiver, then you're just simply not doing your job. The other part of it is this. He could potentially be moved on from after June 1st. That day's coming up here in about less than a week, or about a little bit more than a week. And when healthy, he is still a top receiver that I know Derek Carr would be great with. So a lot of people, they're going to look at the numbers, right? 9 games last season. Oh, Mitch, you only had 51 catches, 771 yards, and 3 touchdowns. You're not totally wrong. However, I mean, that's still pretty productive in 9 games, especially when he was also dealing with an injury. Now, sure, the injuries are starting to scare me a little bit with Julio, but he's a phenomenal player when fully healthy. So as it stands right now, this is the Falcons wide receiver depth chart. The reason why I wanted to show you all this is because this is the other reason why I am a believer that Atlanta, not only are they in cap hell, but they are confident in somebody like Calvin really being able to take that next step. I also know they're also confident in Russell Gage. And when you have a young receiver that you're hoping that can take that next step in Ridley, maybe the way you do it is save some money and move on from Julio Jones. So what I want you guys to do, we're going to have a little bit of fun here. Fill in the blank. If the Raiders trade for Julio Jones, I will blank. You can put anything in there, reminder. You can get in trouble by cursing, so try not to do that. Fill in the blank. If the Raiders trade for Julio Jones, I will. The hope is this. You would subscribe to the Raiders Report and you tune into YouTube, because if this shit happens, dude, I am going live. We're going to be getting wild here on the show. I mean, it's going to be bigger than our draft shows. It's going to be probably one of the biggest and baddest live things I ever do. If you want to check out more of my live videos, we go live every single Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific. But I'm telling you right now, if they trade for Julio, subscribe, turn on those noties, because we're going live. Now, my man Tom Downey, who, by the way, is going to be having a baby girl, if anybody could, go hit up Tom on Twitter, @WhatGoingDown. Send him some love. But what he did a few days ago on our Chat Sports YouTube channel was this. He basically broke down some of these potential Julio Jones destinations. The Patriots, Titans, the team that we all care about, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Indianapolis Colts. The other 4 teams that he mentioned were the Detroit Lions, the Los Angeles Chargers, Packers, and the 49ers. Now, I also throw this team out there because I believe that they should have been on the list and they weren't, the Baltimore Ravens. But the reason why I wanted to be able to bring this up is because I'm always out on the internet finding trade things, right? Or finding this piece or finding that and giving my 2 cents on it. And obviously, Tom is a guy that I respect a lot. He put together this trade for Julio Jones. The Raiders, they get him. The Falcons, they received Bryan Edwards, who the Raiders drafted in the 3rd round last year, number 81 overall. You also get a 2022 second-round pick and then a 2022 third-round pick. So every single time I ask you, hey, go down in the comments, let me know how you feel about it. I want you to grade this Tom trade, A, B, C, D, or is it an F? A means it's great. B means it's good. C, it's an average trade. D, it's a bad trade. F, it's an absolute fail. We've all been to school, right? So go down in the comments right now. Grade this trade idea from Tom where he's got Julio Jones going to the Raiders. The Falcons, they're going to go ahead and they're going to get Bryan Edwards. They're also going to get a second-round pick, and they're also going to go out and get a third-round pick. So go down and let me know what y'all are thinking, A, B, C, D, or is it an F? My grade for the Julio Jones trade from Tom, it's a D grade, and I just really didn't like it all that much. This has been something that I've talked about multiple times here on the Raiders Report, and I go back and I look at reports from a guy like Peter King that said, hey, Atlanta would be open to trading Julio for a second-round pick. If all you're open to is a second-round pick, why do I also have to throw in a third-round pick? Why do I also have to throw in a young receiver that the Raiders have high hopes for? If you were to tell me straight up Bryan Edwards and a 2022 second-round pick to 100% lock in this trade for Julio, that is something I would also do. But in terms of throwing in an extra third-round pick, man, that's just something I can't get behind. So what I want you guys to do is this. If you want a Julio Jones trade idea video, I want you to go ahead and like it. What do I mean by this? Normally, I'll go ahead and I'll put like 6 different trade ideas or 4 different trade ideas together and how the Las Vegas Raiders can go out and get Julio Jones in silver and black. So if you like that idea, what I want you to do is like the vid. The reason why I'm asking you, we're an interactive channel. I want you guys to have your 2 cents to be able to get in here, and they're videos that I really enjoy making. Another trade idea that I saw out there on the web was from Vic Tafur, the guy from The Athletic, and he basically said that this is what it would be. Julio Jones, the Falcons receive Keelan and a 2022 third-round pick. So essentially, The Athletic asked every single one of their writers to, hey, give us a trade idea for Julio Jones. We're going to go ahead and we're going to make an article. We're going to put them all together, and then we're going to talk about which ones we think are the most realistic and which ones we like the most. Before I give my grade on Tafur's trade, I'm going to ask you guys to do the exact same thing. Scale from 0 to 100. 0 being it's absolutely terrible. 100, you absolutely love it. Here's the thing here. I like Vic. He does a lot of good work, but I can't even grade this trade for the simple fact of I would be doing a bad job as an analyst covering the Raiders if for me to actually sit there and give this any kind of thought whatsoever, because I get that The Athletic is credible and I get that Tafur is credible, but for you to actually put this together, really, I think it loses a lot of credibility. And for him, and if The Athletic would have actually put it out, they would have lost a lot of credibility. I mean, imagine this. They asked him to give a trade, and it was so bad that they didn't even put it in the article because that's how bad it was. This is what Tafur had to say on Twitter about why his trade didn't get featured. My modest offer didn't even make the cut. I offered a third-rounder and Doss. I don't know how the Raiders would make it work cap-wise, but imagine Jones is one of Gruden's dozen favorite players in the NFL. Doss would make the Falcons roster. You are right that Keelan would make that roster, which, again, you're not 100% wrong on. However, it is foolish, and I mean foolish, to think that Atlanta would accept a trade for a third-round pick and Keelan Doss, and you get Julio Jones. The other thing that he's just simply not putting into account, there's a lot of other NFL teams that want Julio on their roster. And if you think that that's the trade offer that's able to get it done, I'm sorry, you just lose a lot of credibility in my book, which is why he ended up not getting featured in the article. So again, today's show is presented by Autumn Abyss. I absolutely love their gear, and they just released a brand new Charles Woodson shirt. Now, I'll say this. Out of all the shirts that they've given me, they got a lot of good ones. This is my favorite. If you all know, I'm a big Woodson fan. Shout out to the O. Shout out to Woodson as well. Go to AutumnAbyss.com where you can get your hands on this. Or you can listen up because we're giving away 3 Woodson t-shirts. All you got to do is go to this Instagram post from Autumn Abyss. I'll put the link in the comments. It'll also be in the description so it's easy to find. And then all you got to do is follow the instructions right on that Instagram post for you to be entered for a chance to win. If you don't want to read those, well, guess what? I'll be able to break it down for you a little bit more simple here. Go to Autumn Abyss's Instagram. That's all you got to do. You got to give them a follow. You have to like that post, and you got to tag your friends. So let's say you tag one person on that post, you get 1 entry, right? We've all done a 50-50 raffle. If you tag 5 people, you get 5 entries. You tag 10 people, you get 10 entries. You tag 100, you get 100. If you want to go ahead and tag me, I would appreciate it as well. We're giving away 3 Woodson t-shirts. All that information will be in the description. It'll be in the comments. We're giving away 3 winners, and I'm going to announce those winners on my next Tuesday's live show on the Raiders Report. All right, we're going to keep it moving here. We're going to be talking about now Henry Ruggs, and is he ready to break out? Bleacher Report wrote an article about one player that could break out on every single team. They picked the Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver Henry Ruggs. There's no doubt about this. He has the talent. If anybody sits here and tells me that you can watch Henry Ruggs' film and say that he's not talented, you're watching the wrong film. You're watching the film that Jamarcus Russell used to watch when they'd give him the blank tapes, because he's got it all. He just needs to be a little bit more of a crisp route runner. He needs to gain a little bit of weight, and if he can do those 2 things, dude, watch out. I'm telling you, he's going to be electric. So this is what Joe Marino of the Draft Network had to say about Ruggs and why essentially they picked him to be that breakout player. Ruggs brings rare speed to the table. The cliche phrases about being a threat to score on every touch are absolutely applicable. One wrong angle or misstep by the defense can result in 6 points because his ability to accelerate is far from another planet. And Ruggs isn't just a burner. He's a fairly polished wide receiver that completes as a blocker. He is a good blocker. So going back to a lot of these things here, when you look at his numbers, 26 catches, 452 yards, 2 touchdowns, like there were games we saw him in that Chiefs game. You're like, wow. That's why we drafted this guy in the first round. There were a lot of other games you're like, well, he needs to put it together. I know I say this all the time with Cliff Branch, but he reminds me a lot of Cliff Branch. It took him 2 years to get going. It took him 2 years to learn how to run better routes. It took him 2 years to put on a little bit more weight. If you're patient with Ruggs, I'm telling you, he can be a very, very talented player. So what I'm going to ask you all is this. How many receiving yards is Ruggs going to have this season? It's a tough question because he had 26 catches, 452 yards. I mean, if I tell you right now he keeps that average alone and gets up to 40, 50 catches, you're talking about an absolute breakout season, which is what Bleacher Report is expecting. However, there's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. I'm somewhere around like the 500 to 600 yard range because there's other guys like, one, Bryan Edwards, and if he can stay healthy, this is going to be a guy that could be pretty productive. And the next story here is around him potentially starting. The latest report is that the Raiders want Edwards to start by Ruggs. I mean, when I first saw this, I was not surprised whatsoever. If you've watched the show before, you'll know that I've sit here and said, hey, I believe John Brown's going to start. And I still will say that I believe that John Brown is going to start. By the Raiders simply saying that they want Edwards to start next to Ruggs, that's the smart thing to say, and it's the best case scenario because you want your 2 young receivers to take that next step, and if Edwards is starting over Brown, that means he's doing all the right things. So when I see that this came out, I was like, well, no shit. That's what the Raiders want to do. And if he can stay healthy, watch out because Mike Mayock had a round 1 grade on him when he was first coming out. It's just he had a lot of injuries coming out of South Carolina. I'll say the greatest receiver of all time to come out of that college. He's 22 years old. He's built a little bit more like that true traditional wide receiver one at 6'3", 212 pounds. I know we talked about, Julio a little bit earlier on, but I mean, if he could come out and if you could get Julio to train with Bryan Edwards, that would be an absolute slam dunk. 11 catches, 193 yards, and a touchdown. If he can stay healthy, look out for a guy like Bryan Edwards. So right now as it stands, this is what I believe the wide receiver depth chart is going to be week 1. I know you see Bryan Edwards there underneath Ruggs, and he's not going to be the wide receiver 2, but I could be wrong. Maybe, Brown doesn't mesh well with Carr. Maybe Edwards does take that step, because if there's one thing that Brown can't do, he doesn't have the body of Edwards, and that's never going to change. But what I've seen from Carr, he relies on some veteran wide receivers that can run the correct routes, and that's exactly what you're going to get from Smokey Brown. So what I want you guys to do here is this. I want you to rank these receivers, and it might be a little bit difficult, which I understand because normally I only ask you to do one thing. So what I want you to do is rank them. Ruggs, Bryan Edwards, John Brown. If you want to write their names in terms of number 1, Ruggs, Edwards 2, John Brown 3, however you do it, that's fine. If that's just too much to type, it's all good. I'm sometimes lazy too. I also put the numbers below. So what I want you to do is rank the receivers in terms of how productive they're going to be this upcoming season. When I rank them, I have it as John Brown number 1. I have Henry Ruggs at number 2. I have Bryan Edwards at number 3. In a perfect world, it's Ruggs, Edwards, and John Brown. So if I'm being honest with y'all, I hope I'm wrong. Because if I'm wrong, that means our young guys are doing the right thing. So what I want you to do, take my rankings into consideration, and then let me know what y'all think. Now, if you made it this far in the video, please go ahead, give me a follow on Instagram, and if you want an extra entry to the Autumn Abyss giveaway, go to my IG, click on my story. I'm going to be putting something out there where if you share my story, if you share Autumn Abyss's post, you're going to get an extra entry. So hit me up on IG at MitchellRenz365.